Welcome to Build It Bedford View, the home ground for our DIY adventures. My name is Gary Mayer, and our purpose is to create a series of in-house DIY videos to help you understand our products and how to implement them. I have 27 years experience in painting, waterproofing and DIY projects. I guess you're wondering why me? Not because of budget restraints. We had intentions of using a 6'4" hunky muscular presenter, but we wanted our lady viewers to keep their focus on the project on hand. Our other reason was not to intimidate our male viewers, but to rather get that guy that has been waiting for his chance to get off that couch and shine like the knight he is. So we decided to go with me, a short ginger-headed guy. But beware, my nickname is the Ginger Ninja. Our story starts off with a young couple renting a flat. They need to conduct a few cost-effective repairs to retain their deposit and move into their first home. Our first episode starts off with the basics. When your dad teaches you to ride a bike, he takes you to the park. He holds the back of the bike to help you keep your balance. Later, when he sees that you have more confidence, he puts training wheels on the bike. And as you practice riding, you feel more confident. The training wheels come off, you ride the bike, and so is it with painting. You need to learn the basics before you can paint. We have taken away all the glitz and glamour. No big production studios, makeup or special lighting, just raw footage so that you can feel that you're on site with us. And that brings us to our first episode. Hope you enjoy our DIY projects and please like us on Facebook.
Aiya! Ginger Ninja!
Right, welcome everybody to episode 1. We're going to be doing wall preparation and paint roller. Right, first part of the process is to inspect the wall. So let's inspect the wall. Right, let's have a look at this wall. In this particular area it's quite smooth, although we have a little bit of indentation here. A couple of marks on the wall here. And as we go further down the wall, we get to these spots here. Obviously this guy has drilled some holes in the wall here, and those are going to definitely have to be polyfilled. Going down further the wall, we're going to see if we can find any more. A couple of marks down here. But generally the wall is in quite a good condition. It's quite a smooth wall. Right, so the next step is that we make sure that there's no furniture in the way. In this case we've clearly taken all the furniture out of the way. You can see there's nothing in the way. It's important to do that because the last thing you want to happen is to get paint on your furniture or anything that's in the way. And now we're going to put down our drop sheet. Today I've got this drop sheet here. This is a super soaker mat. It's a lot better than your normal conventional plastic drop sheets. And the reason for that is with a normal plastic drop sheet, the guys generally let paint on it. It gets a lot of little small spit from the paint getting onto the plastic mat. And that causes endless problems when the guy paints with a roller and gets off the mat and then he walks it right through your floor, thus resulting in you getting little marks on your floor all over. What is nice about this Super Soaker mat from Hamilton's Brushware is the fact that if you have a look at this, I've got this one open here already, you'll see that it's got a plastic lining on it. So therefore, when the guy stands on the mat and he does get a bit of that spitting paint, it'll seep into the matting and it won't go through to the floor because it's got this plastic lining. So the next thing we're going to do is we're going to put out our mat. Right, so let's take out our matting, guys. Right, so we're going to take out our matting. It's quite simple. We just basically pull it out like that. Make sure that we run it along the wall. As you can see, I've gone a little bit off the wall here, so I'm just going to move it more into place. Alright, now we've got it right up against the wall, and that's exactly what we want. It's also very important, like, so if you're in a public place, make sure that you take danger tape and demarcate the thing. People are always walking where they shouldn't walk, and the last thing you want is somebody bumps over your paint and they're not so happy that their shoes got full of paint. So, but in this particular case, we're just in a flat, and so we're just going to put up our sign here. We're going to put it there, just to indicate to people, don't come to this area while we're painting. Okay, so after the inspection of the wall, which we've already done, clearly these are the items that we're going to be needing to do the job. We've got our Super Soaker mat that we've already put out, our utility cutting brushes from Hamilton here, We've got some sanding rolls, a rubber sanding block here that the sandpaper is going to go in, some masking tape, scraper, sponge, nice smooth roller over here, some sugar soap, some crack filler, an empty bucket, the paint that we're going to paint the wall, a QD enamel, a universal undercoat, and our plaster primer. All these items will be explained later in detail. They're all available in South Africa. That's the super part about it. And you can purchase these items at Build It, Bedford View, and Edenvale. So now that we've gone over the products that we need for the job, our next step is wall preparation. And we start with crack filler. So this is crack filler from Metal Paints here. And it's quite simple. It's 2 parts powder, 1 part water. The reason why we start with crack filler is because it takes a long time to dry. Okay, so the way we're going to do this is quite simple. Yeah, I've got a deodorant cap, that would be the 1 part, and I've got a cup that's twice the size of the deodorant cap. If I put it inside you can see it's halfway. So we're going to fill this with water, and we're going to fill this with crack filler. That way we've got 2 parts crack filler and 1 part water. Okay, and this is how you do it. Take the crack filler out of the box, shake it down a bit, so you get that powder in the corners, and take the scissors, and you're just going to slice that corner over there. Alright, so we put our powder in the big cup, of course. Here. Just wiggle that bag. Now we've got a full cup of crack filler. Right, so now we're going to take our, I'll just use a lid of a paint. And we're just going to put that out like that. Make ourselves a nice little heat. What's fun about polyfiller is it makes you feel like you can stand it to it and make it a nice little volcano. So I've got a little heap here. So what you do is you dig your finger in here and you swirl it around till you get a little bit of a hole in the center of the polyfiller. Just dust my fingers off a little bit there. Right, so now I'm going to take just a normal bottle that you would normally throw away, and we're going to fill that up with 1 part water. Okay, so you take that water and you put it in that little hole, and it might flow a little bit around. Don't worry too much about that. So take your scraper here. I've got a 5 cm scraper here from Hamilton. I'm just going to move it, work it around, get my water flowing nicely in there. I've overcooked this one a little bit. It doesn't make a difference. You can just swirl that water up and down all around. Important not to get too much of a wet mix, but not to get too much of a dry mix. But you want to get that powder, all those lumps coming out of it. Moving it around, just keeping a nice consistency that you can get it nice and smooth, your polyfiller. And that's basically what I'm doing here. Just getting it nice mixed up here so that it's easy for me to get in the wall. Okay, I just want to quickly, see I've got a screw here lodged in the wall there, and we're just going to take that out there like that. Put that down so it's out of the way. And because I wasn't born with any height, I'm just going to use my little ladder here, get myself nice and secure. And then it's quite simple with polyfiller. It's very important to keep the scraper right up against the wall. And in one quick swift movement, just move it over. Make sure you take all that residue off as much as you can so that you've got less sand later. Get a little bit more here. And one quick movement, we just come down there, polish all that off. Taking all that residue polyfiller off so there's less sand in for us. Don't worry too much if you can't fill the hole one time, or if you do get a bit of shrinkage, always come back, fill that hole again. But don't spend too much time putting the polyfill in the wall too, because then you basically end up putting way too much residue polyfill on the wall. There's a bit of a big hole there. It's never a pleasure when you ain't born with height. You gotta move the ladder all the time. But us shorties have a way of getting away with it. Well, a bit of a, not too much there, but no fear. You can always just come back, catch that lump before it falls on the floor. Right, so now we've filled all those holes up there. I just want to re-inspect the wall just to see if I've missed any little spots. Over here I've got one little indentation here. A little indentation over here. Okay. Yeah. Just notches here. Just want to go down the wall. And that looks like we are finished with our crack filler. So the next step, while we're waiting for the crack filler to dry, is going to be marking off the wall. And the way we mark off the wall is with masking tape. The polyfiller takes around about 3 hours to dry, so therefore we've got plenty time while the polyfiller is drying for us to mark off the wall. Okay, when marking off the wall, we use masking tape. This masking tape is from Hamilton Brushware. Comes in different sizes. Comes in a 12mm, an 18mm, 24mm, 36mm, and 48mm. Basically, with masking tape, it depends on how messy you are. If you're messy, very messy, you go bigger. If you're not so messy, you go a bit smaller. But remember, when you're painting for the first time, you are going to be using the bigger masking tape because you will be more messy. I call it the training wheels of a bicycle, masking tape. The better you get at cutting, the less you have to use masking tape. So normally I don't use masking tape, but it comes with experience. The more you practice cutting, the better you'll get, the less you'll need masking tape. But in this case, we're going to mark off all the areas where we don't want to paint. And we're going to do this like this. Right, so you basically just put the masking tape up against the wall, because now we don't want to paint the skirting here. And it's basically like, almost like joining the dotted lines. You make sure that you're up against the wall, wherever you don't want the paint to go. Make sure you keep it nice and even. And it's best to keep it in one piece. And the reason for that is, when you take the masking tape off, if you've got lots of little pieces, it's going to take you a lot longer to remove the masking tape. So therefore, it's better to just keep it in one piece as best as you can. If it does break, it's no big train smack. You can always join it then. But try and keep it one piece. Right. Smooth it over in the corner there. I'm not going to bore you too much with masking tape, so I'm going to go ahead now and masking tape everything up, and then later on we'll show you the next process. Okay, so now that I've marked off all the areas that we wanted to put the masking tape on, you'll see like here, for instance here, I've gone up against the wall, I'm not going to paint that area. I've gone along the corners here, I'm not going to paint that area. Along the bottom here on the skirting, as well as around this doorway over here, and then right to the corner there and on the top. We're masking taped off every area that we don't want to paint, and that's basically what you do with masking tape. But while I was doing that, I realized one thing. Right on the top here, there's a little bit of a structural crack, and that normally occurs in most houses. The reason for that is you've got a little bit of movement on the corners, between the wall and basically the corners, and that structural crack normally comes. Now a lot of guys normally take crack filler and they fill it with crack filler. The problem being that is you get that same movement and then unfortunately it cracks again. So even though we went over basically the products we need, you normally realize that you need always something extra on site. And one of the things that we're going to need to fix this problem is an acrylic silicone. So I just want to show you, this is an acrylic silicone from Den Braven. Acrylic basically means that the silicone is paintable. So you'll see here, they've normally got a brush to indicate that that's a paintable silicone. And that's what we're going to use to fill this little structural crack. So you basically have to just cut off the tip, which I've already done, put that on. And this is known as a chalking gun, but most people out there know it as a silicone gun. It's actually a chalking gun. Anyway, and you just turn that around, and basically you're good to go. So I'm going to start you in this corner here, and you do get silicone applicators, but I don't know, I've never actually really liked them that much. I've always preferred my finger. So if you're not a person that likes it on your finger, you can always use an applicator. And then you just want to go nice and thin along that little line, filling up that little crack. And then when you've got the silicone in line, just take your finger, smooth it over nicely. Make sure that there's no residue silicone because you don't want to get an ugly streak, ugly line. And that's basically what we're going to do right along the wall. Just to get rid of that mark. Always keep a cloth handy. As you can see, I've obviously forgotten my cloth. I get a cloth. Because that's the only problem with using the cloth, is your hand's always going to get, finger's always going to get a little bit of silicone off. And you want to wipe that off your hand immediately. Otherwise what happens is, you sit in the bath trying to scrub that silicone off. So what I'm going to quickly do here is I'm first going to just go along the track and then come back with my finger. You don't want the silicone to dry, so don't take too much time. Just going to go quickly back here now. Move it along with my finger. Get my cloth here. And then you'll see I just go right in that groove. If you've got a little bit of residue silicone, just take it back with your finger. Remember, it must be a paintable silicone. You can't just use a normal silicone, because then when it comes to painting, you won't be able to paint over it. So, like I indicated to you on that silicone, it must be an acrylic silicone, and it must have the indication that it is a paintable silicone. And so you can just go along the wall with your finger, pulling up that ugly little crack, which could possibly give us a harder time trying to paint that area. And not even that, but it finishes off the wall nicely and it achieves its purpose. Alright, I'm going to leave you. I'm going to carry on doing this acrylic silicone, and as soon as I'm finished, then we'll come back. Okay, so now that we've done all the acrylic sealant, commonly known as silicone, you'll see that I went right along the top here and sealed off that little structural crack, as well as when I got right to the corner over here. If you look along here, I actually had a piece of plastic trunk in here, and I sealed along there too because there was a little bit of a gap between the wall and the plastic trunk. We obviously got electrical wire coming down there, so we had to do that so that we finish off our wall nicely. And so our next process is sanding. Sanding is very crucial that you sand nicely so that your paint job at the end of the day is perfect. And like I said, I've got this little sanding block from Hamilton Paint, and we're going to use 100 grit sandpaper. 100 grit sandpaper is normally quite a fine sandpaper. It's not too fine and it's not too rough. It's just great for sort of walls. So we're going to take that label off. So now just take off that label. And so you want to sort of more or less cut the same size as the block. So our blocks are around about there. There's no perfectness to this. Basically, more or less judgment. Cut our roll there. Long enough there. There we are. So we want to tuck that in a little bit more. Okay, now that we've cut our sandpaper, you'll notice that in the inside of the block, there's 3 nails. So what you're going to do is you're going to shove your sandpaper in there, get it nice and secure, and push down. Make sure that you don't get your fingers caught on those nails, because that could be a knot. And the last thing you want is a sore finger. Right, so now our block is nicely secured. Actually, kind of made this one a little bit too big. There's no problem with that. Cut off a little piece. And again, open over the nails and click it in place. Right, now that our block's ready to go, let's start sanding. Just want to take all these goodies off out of here. Because again, like I said, wasn't born with any art. So you want to sort of level against the wall when you're sanding. You don't want to over sand, because you don't want to take all this crack filler that you put in here out. And a good method of it is when you feel that you've sanded enough, just go over it with your hand and see if it's nice and smooth. No little bumps, no little indentations. And in this case, we kind of put our crack filler in a nice smooth way, so therefore we don't have to do a lot of sanding. A little bit of a bigger spot. Just go over with your hand again. Make sure that you're nice and smooth, taking all that indentation out. That's good to go. So that's the super part. It's very important when putting in that crack filler that you don't over the crack filler. But you don't under the crack filler, because you don't want to come back and really have to do that crack filler if you sanded too much. And in the same token, you don't want to put too much on the wall so that you have to sand forever. So notice I'm level with the wall, not exerting too much force. I don't want to rip any paint. But at the same token, I want a nice smooth finish over our cracks. This one over here, I slightly overfull, so I'm going to add more sand in there. So all the areas that you put the crack filler in now needs to be sanded. And we're going to go ahead and do that, and then I'm going to catch up with you on the next step after sanding. Okay, so now that we've done the sanding and our walls are nice and smooth, our next step is sugar soak. Now I've watched plenty guys on site that don't sugar soak their walls. It's crucial that you sugar soak your walls, and I'll tell you the reason why. The reason why is the guys sand, all that dust falls on the wall, then they take a roller, they roll over the dust, putting all the marks back on the wall, because all the little fragments of crack fillers left on the wall, and they paint over it. So your preparation goes to nothing. So to me, the sugar soak step is crucial. And it's nice and easy method, anybody can do it. And we're going to be using the sugar soak from Metal Paints today. It normally comes in a powder, but you do get it in a liquid if you don't want to go to the mixing part of it. But it's really easy to mix. All that you really need is that empty bucket again. You know, that's why this empty bucket is so crucial. You notice that I used that empty bucket, this lid, to do the crack filler. And then we're going to use this now for the sugar soak. So The reason why we use sugar soap and not anything else is because sugar soap's great. It's got a little bit of texture in it, and that helps to take off grease, marks, grime off the wall, and it's just a super product for anything to do with paint. Also great if you use it in your kitchens, on your floors and counters. You can do so many things with sugar soap, and it's fairly cheap. So we're going to take out our sugar soap, and we're going to snip off that corner again. Okay, so this is the way we mix sugar soap. According to the box, it's 1 cup, and again I'm going to use my little deodorant cap, which just works out perfect. 1 cup to 5 liters of warm water. The reason why we use warm water is it dissolves the powder much faster and just makes the process so much quicker. You don't have to wait for the water to become a liquid soap. So it's nice and simple. We're going to pour in our sugar soap into the cap, put it into our bucket over here, and you'll see because of the warm water it's already dissolving, so we just want to speed it up because we want to get on with this job. And so we're just going to take a stirring stick, stir for a couple of seconds, make sure that the powder is all dissolved in it, all dissolved in the water here. And then basically, just to show you, it's sort of like a milky liquid. And we're ready to clean our walls. So I've used a sponge, and this is quite a small sponge. If you guys want to go faster, use a bigger sponge, or you can use a cloth. It's very important not to put too much water onto the wall, so you don't want to be doing that. So when you do plunge it into the water, make sure that you just squeeze it out. You don't need a lot of soap on it. We want to just keep the wall nice and dry, not too wet. And basically what we're going to do is we're going to go over. So you'll see there where I've done all my polyfilling. Look how nice that just cleans around the polyfiller. Just takes away all that excess polyfiller that we don't need. And you can basically see that acid goes onto the wall. All these little grime marks, little spots, kick marks and all that is going to go off. Just making our wall much smoother, easier for us to paint. And we're going to do that all along the way until we've got this whole wall clean. Getting all that excess dust off, squeezing out your sponge, making sure you don't get too much water on the wall, because you don't want to be waiting a long time for the wall to dry. So yeah, you'll see, it's always nice when you go over the polyfill marks, because then you can see them all just disappear. All that grime comes off the wall with sugar soap, and that's just super. The rest of the wall is fairly clean, but it's important to get all that dust off, because some of the dust would have drifted down to the bottom, and we don't want that dust on our wall. Not after we've done all this preparation. You see how I've got a little bit more stubborn marks. Don't spend too much time because you don't want to pierce the paint and then have to do more crack filling. But I always use the back if I've got a little bit of a stubborn mark. And I just quickly go over it, getting all those marks. Anyway, this is quite a simple process. I'm going to go ahead now and clean the whole wall and then let it dry. We're going to quickly rinse it and then we can start painting. So that concludes preparation of the wall. Please like us on Facebook on the link below. Our next episode will continue with the same DIY project. It's going to be paint, rolling and cutting. Thank you very much.